Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. This is a really fantastic event, and we're honored for the College of Engineering and Computing to be able to sponsor this upcoming panel. And I'm very honored to be here to talk to you. And the deal was I get a few minutes to talk to you. The panel is very short, like an hour, so I'm going to keep myself short because you really want to hear from the experts. So I really want to point out the title. It says From Hype to Harvest. And I think this is a very important title because it admits two truths. One is there's a lot of hype about AI. And number two, there's harvest to be had if we know how to do that. So the hype, I've been around long enough to have seen a lot of technologies come and some go, from the rise of the internet, smartphone apps, and cloud computing, and so on. This is very similar, although there's also some differences there. Number one is AI has been around for a long time. It's just we've never been so close to AI like we are right now. Number two, it was really fast the last couple of years. With ChatGPT and the likes, things have changed so dramatically. And number three, this will impact all our professional and personal lives, so all aspects of our lives. So this is quite unique. What about ROI? So I'm a computer scientist, by the way. I should have mentioned that. So I teach students in the classroom how to write machine learning models. And then we tweak them. We replace them with other models, better models, different parameters, maybe to go from an 80% accuracy to 85% accuracy. So this gain of 5% accuracy, is that really going to make a difference? Is that really going to be the return of investment? Or is this a little bit more complicated, right? So for example, if you use an agent console for customer service interactions, you might have a 30% reduction of handle time. What does that mean? That might mean the customer is going to be more satisfied, customer retention is going to be bigger, your staff is going to be used more efficiently. So it gets complicated. Which one is the return of investment? Thank you for switching the slides already. So I'm a computer scientist. We like formulas and equations and algorithms. So here's a simple attempt to show that as a formula, right? So the ROI is the delta, the gain in either revenue, cost savings, risk reduction, speed, quality, or experience. For example, the customer experience situation falls into the last category here, right? This is not a complete and perfect formula, but just to give you the idea, there's many different needles that can move. And if at least one of these needles move upward, we're going to have some return of investment. Now, the pitfall is the last line. There's a cost involved. The students spend 4 more weeks on tuning. This is an effort, a cost. Or the business has to build, operate, govern, and build guardrails for an AI engine and so on. This is all efforts. If these costs are too high, the benefit's not going to give you anything. All right? So what's the story that I'm trying to tell you here? The return of investment, the true ROI, is a complex story, and that's why we need a panel like this, and that's how I want to hand it over now to the panel.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Professor Chris. My name is Manjul Gupta. I'm a professor here in the business school here, and I'm here with an esteemed group of panelists. So we'll start with each panelist introducing themselves, and if they could also let us know how are they using AI in their organizations. So starting with Stan.
Thank you, Manjul. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here and taking some time off and listening to us. I'm Stan, I'm with Lufthansa Industry Solutions. We are an IT and AI advisory company. So we build AI solutions for enterprises. We do not build them for ourselves, but for other enterprises. I'm overlooking the AI projects here in the North American market. We're local in Miami for about 20 years, and I couldn't be more proud of this crowd here. Colleen, FIU, the team, great job for inviting us all and setting this all up, but also it's amazing how the community has grown over the years. We were sitting here with much fewer people some years ago, and that's great to see that interest. Do I go with the AI cases right away, or do we do the introduction first?
You can.
No, let's do the introduction first. Well.
Hi, my name is Tammy Dugan. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm with Cummins. It's kind of an interesting dynamic with me because Cummins' core business is not AI. It's making engines and gensets and physical products that go into a lot of different things. So finding ways to streamline things is challenging, but it's fun and I enjoy it.
Thank you. So my name is Dania Triff. I lead the data science department on the customer service area in FPL. Same as her, our business is not specifically AI, but it's basically keeping your lights on, right? So everybody here knows FPL one way or another. We use AI in a variety of projects all across the organization. Later on, I'm going to kind of discuss how we are specifically using AI in our customer service areas to improve productivity, reduce handle costs, and how we can really measure return on investments on this initiative.
Hi everyone, my name is Christopher Wilson. I previously any FPLers out there? How many FPLers do we have? We have quite a few of them out there, right there. All right, yeah. So previously FPL for a number of years, a couple of decades. I don't look it, I know. Transitioned to an AI company specializing in computer vision. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we do, but it looks like critical infrastructure. So no slides because of what we do, but we look at how we can put someone in places that no one else wants to be and deal with things that technology solutions are dealing with today, which is things that are dirty, dull, and dangerous. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and how we can leverage AI and see the returns there.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. So given that amount of time that we have, I'll get to the main question and we'll ask our panelists. So in academia, we have something called IT productivity paradox, which means is you keep investing money in IT, now in AI, but how do we quantify it? How can we actually see the value of the AI investments that the companies have put in or they have been forced? So I'll start with Chris. If you would like to shed some light, like how can companies quantify or actually see the tangible value in their AI investments?
Okay, so to dig a little deeper, the company I work for and I lead business development for is a company called ICAST, and what we do is surveillance on substations. So substations are the things that you drive by that have the fences around them. It has the signs that nobody go in here, and it's being monitored, and it's a critical part of the electrical grid. Nobody wants to go inside of a substation because it's very dangerous. So we have 24/7 visual screening of that substation, and we look for things like nefarious activity, thermal anomalies, flooding, and one interesting one is birds that are nesting over a substation, because birds, specifically here in South Florida, we have a lot of green parrots, probably still from Hurricane Andrew, that build these humongous nests. I mean, could be the size of this table. And when those nests actually fall, they take the substation out. And a substation feeds thousands of customers. So when that does happen, you get an outage. And if you have an outage, then the electric utility does not make revenue. So that's just one key business case. We'll talk a little bit more later on about others.
Thank you, Chris. Tammy, you want to add anything with respect to Cummins? Because it's a very different type of industry, heavy duty, which a lot of things that Cummins may do may not be applied to the regular technological sector, for instance.
Sure. So one good example is predictive maintenance. So since Cummins makes physical products, things like engines that can fail, there's warranty periods over all of this equipment. So it's very important that Cummins monitors warranty costs, not only warranty costs, but customer satisfaction. So we have engines that are in these big mining equipment things that run 24/7. And we have efforts to do, basically do prognostics, to do predictive maintenance, to figure out, something's going on with this engine. It hasn't failed yet, but things don't look good. So we need to contact this customer and have some scheduled downtime for this, so that we don't have unscheduled downtime, which costs the customer a bunch of money and potentially we lose a customer over it. And also we can mitigate a much higher warranty cost if we have to replace a $100,000 engine versus repairing a small part of the engine. So that our ROI goes both in our warranty cost savings and the cost savings for the customer themselves.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I know, Dania, you wanted to be specifically asked this question, so I want to tell everybody. And this is, how do you think the ROI when it comes to AI investments, it's a bit different than the other forms of conventional, traditional technologies, or like we call it IT investment, like the number of computers, for instance. How do you think it's different when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I think that is very different. Let's think about a regular, project that we're used to. We're gonna maybe change the billing system, right? We know we're looking for probably savings on operational manual operations, reduction of errors, maybe some license cost savings. So at the end of the project, we can easily measure, oh, we were successful, we comply, everything came across, it's all fine and dandy. With AI, it's a little bit different. In AI, you're betting on a capability of a technology that's constantly moving and improving. So I would suggest that we think of AI investment the same way that we think of investment when we are investing on venture capital or R&D projects. Meaning, you might start proof of concepts with 10 projects, knowing firsthand that only maybe 3 or 4 of them are going to give you a return that is going to be good enough to push into production. So that is I think it's a different mindset, and we have to educate our business executive to accept that reality and really start thinking about that this way. I'm going to try to briefly put an example through our own experience in FPL customer service, right, that we have with the technology. We have a very good team, experienced team of data scientists that have been working with machine learning and data science for many years. However, our AI LLM journey started like a couple of years ago, right, when everybody started talking about what the things were. Immediately, a first project was funded by our executive. The idea was to create a chatbot that would directly talk to consumers to reduce the number of calls that we would receive on our call center, right? That was very straightforward. However, as soon as we started working with the technology and getting our hand dirty, we realized that it was not close enough and not good enough for us to feel confident to really put that tool in front of our customers. So we immediately pivoted into, okay, we're not going to do that chatbot customer facing anymore. We're going to do an agent assist chatbot. Just internal, we are going to then help the agents to shorten the call time, right? How did we try to do that? We used the technology to really search in our knowledge base, find immediately the article they were looking for while they were on the call, as well as some information about the customer. That project, honestly, was mildly successful. So yeah, we reduced the handle time some. But the good part of the story is that it didn't end up there. As the team was really maturing and learning the capabilities as well as the limitations of the technology, new ideas immediately came out. And then 3 new projects were started. One of them, we realized that we were able now to basically get the thousands of calls that we receive daily in our call center, get the transcripts, feed it to an LLM, extract the summaries, the intents, the sentiments, the categories, right? And feed that information back to a very eager team of data analysts that we have on the customer service area so that they could work on improving the other self-serve channels that we have, right? So, and imagine, before, the only way that they could sample the quality of the calls and the problems were basically listening to a sample of calls. How many calls? I mean, we receive around 3,000 calls a day. So how many calls can, our supervisors really, so with that data, they were like, our analysts were like kids on the candy store, right? They started like going all over that, finding new opportunities, and then we started seeing some opportunities to reduce the handle time of the calls. We improved our self-service channels, and also we were able to pinpoint which agents required some extra training, right? Because that was immediately obvious that some agents were not doing the right thing where they were doing attending the calls. But I just want to finish the journey, that specific part, because it didn't end up there. Then we realized that our data analysts were spending hours and weeks pulling all that data and consuming and creating a report because we store all that information back in our databases. And then we said, okay, the technology kept changing. And we said, why don't we put then a chatbot in front of all that information that we just created? And they gave it back to our agents using regular language, right, in English. So now our customer service data analysts are able to just ask in plain English any questions they want to know about how the calls were handled. All this information was stored. The information get back to them in seconds. And when at the end we started measuring reduction of call time as well as number of calls, the 2 metrics are really showing great improvements. So the reason why I'm just making this journey is because if you look at the first project, you could say, oh, that project probably failed, right? The second project was mildly successful, but it was a journey. So if you look at the whole thing as a portfolio and as investment, I think we can say that the whole journey was really successful. I just want to finish that with the thought that I know that several days ago there was a report that came out of MIT saying that 95% of the projects in AI are failing today. And I don't want to discourage anyone, right? Because that could be scary, especially for the executives that need to really put hard money into these projects, right? Because we really need to change the way we look at them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tana. Stan, thank you for being so quiet for so long, but now it's your turn. I wanted to ask you what you are doing or your company is doing at Lufthansa in terms of AI, and also how are you in your line of work is actually capturing the return on investments on investing in AI?
Happy to share. Well, in the 10 years I'm now with the company, I've seen many projects failing and not failing. It's sometimes hard to say why it failed, and the ROI is hard to calculate, right? So any AI project or which an enterprise starts, they obviously go through some evaluation and assessment, right? And AI can really create value for a company either by generating more revenue, right? Dynamic pricing, personalization, get more customers, by cutting costs, right? So here, laying off people or avoiding some errors, and faster innovation. Right? So and here, calculate your ROI based on the best assumptions you can make. But if you start as a company, as an enterprise, which has been around like for a couple of decades, if you start an AI project, the technology stack you have is most likely not ready for that. Right? So you have a technology debt. And the question I always have is this technology dead? Is this something what is related to AI cost, or is this related to the IT department, which they simply avoided to invest for the last 10, 15 years? So if you calculate the ROI, it is very important to understand what are you counting in for the, is this a data scientist, which is obviously in cost for AI project, or is this a database which you were supposed to update 10 years ago, right? So that's on the cost side. On the benefit side, it is easier, but there are also some challenges. And I would like to give you an example to walk you through, and then you tell me how you would have made the decision. We have a client; they do screws and all type of bolts and screws, and they have a customer service team and receive calls for specifications of the screws, material, and so on and so on. And they implemented a Gen AI application on their website where their customers could go and ask those questions. So it turns out that this Gen AI application is able to answer about 48% quite well, and the other 52% would go to the customer service agent. So what is the ROI here? Right, the option would be for this company to lay off about 40% of their customer service agents. So this is a company here in South Carolina. Their CEO said, no, I will not lay anybody off, but now please, customer service agent, use your time, the free time, not for playing Candy Crush, but here's a list of top 50 customers, call them, ask them, how are they doing? Not sales, right? But discuss with them, how are they doing? What do they like about the product? What do they don't like about the product? So in the 9 months this application was running, sales with the top 50 customers went up by 12.4%, and the Net Promoter Score from all customers went up by 6 points. 6 points, which is incredible. So all of our assumptions on the ROI in the beginning of the projects were wrong. Right? So we miscalculated the ROI. Our calculation was much lower. Right? Our assumption were that we came up with a much lower ROI. So sometimes it is a little bit difficult to estimate the ROI. Right? Obviously, you have the cost side and the revenue side. Sometimes you have to take the risk and go for that and just try it out, because on the way you will see and activate more benefits than you might have expected in the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stan. The next question I have, and you all have touched to it to a certain degree, it's difficult to capture the essence of return on AI investments. But if I could just flip this question in a different way, and if I ask you, what kind of business problems that you think AI is best suited for? You talked about customer service, you talked about efficiency, but if the job is just to reduce manpower, and we keep on hearing a lot of about news about AI automation, that's an easy way to actually measure the impact of AI. Now you had 100 people working before we introduced AI. Now you are doing the same job with 20 people, so we have like an 80% efficiency. You can say, but what kind of jobs or processes in industry or in your line of work do you think AI is best suited for? Chris, if you want to take a stab at it.
So I mentioned dull, right? Dull, dangerous type of efforts. Of course, when you look at any business process and you look at workflows and value streams, none of the business disciplines that we've learned, none of the IT disciplines that we learned or have gone, right? You still need to apply all of those to find out where your bottlenecks and address automation or AI, whatever it is, technology towards that. So that doesn't change. But when I think about the dangerous jobs, specifically, AI is going to require a lot, everybody knows this, a lot of energy. Right? And with a lot of energy comes a lot of these assets that are going to be deployed in the field. So we don't have enough people to look at these assets, and they're all critical because I think about my son, and it's like he doesn't mind the power being out as long as the internet's not out, right? So nobody wants that to happen, but we have to have eyes on all these technologies. So where we come into play, and where I think other technologies that come into play, is how we provide a human-like experience in each of these critical locations, sites that are dangerous, that we don't have to expose a human life to.
So it could be either a dangerous job or the jobs that nobody wants to do. So like the dirty jobs, like this, like too dangerous for somebody to do it, or like we just don't have anybody to do it, right? Tammy, your perspective on this?
So one thing I want to take a step back on is sometimes we apply AI to too much. So there's this perception that a lot of problems that can be solved by traditional software development, we're going to throw a chatbot at it and it'll just magically fix it. But what ends up happening is that it's unreliable and you start having to put so many guardrails on it, you might as well have just written some custom software, which would have taken longer, but now it's taken even longer because you had a solution that failed. So I think you have to think, what are the solutions that actually need AI? And then, I agree with what he said. In my area, I don't know, the ones we look at isn't as much dangerous stuff, but it's kind of repetitive stuff, the kind of stuff that you need staff augment for because you need, extra customer service representatives, or you need extra people to do like data ingestion that's manually done for a project, things like that if you can find a way, it's hard to automate it with sort of if-then rules or traditional logic, but it needs just a little extra from, AI or Gen AI so that you can automate that. And I think those are really good potential use cases for a lot of companies. And if you can start small and make it work in one business problem, then you learn what works and what doesn't, and then you can expand it to many of those kind of repeated processes across the company.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Stan, I have a question for you. You said your company, organization, and everybody has said that you are all heavily investing or utilizing AI. Is it because of the competition? Is it because of the board? When the board tells you to implement or not to implement, what are the key concerns that the board of directors have been raising in terms of using or not using, especially like companies like yours, or I assume like you still have a kind of aviation aspect to it. These are high risk industries. Same thing with Cummins or utility sector.
Well, in general, for when an AI project or an AI solutions reaches the board level, it has already gone through the operations and the finance approval. It has already, the numbers and the doability of that. What board is concerned about, how does it aligns with our business strategy? And that sounds like obvious, right? That companies think about it. Does not happen every time, but it is a very important step in the AI implementation, in the AI strategy, to think about how does it align to the business strategy. So if the business strategy, if one of the strategy goals is to improve customer service, then a predictive maintenance project is maybe not the one who should get priority one. But on a more an agentic customer service agent project. So aligning it with whatever the strategy goals are, aligning those AI strategy with that is a very important part of any board decision to go forward or not. Obviously, data security concerns. That is the second one, which quite often kicks out AI projects from the board decision because they also evaluate the risk. So, well, obviously we try to avoid any data leaks, but you cannot guarantee that that will not happen. And they go similar as banks. They do a risk evaluation and ask, so if with 1% probability this data will be leaked for whatever reason, what will be the damage and how is this damage in comparison to the actual benefit, right? So, and if the comparison is rather on the side of risk, then they will not go ahead. So those two decisions are usually discussed and are the key drivers for doing or not doing AI projects.
Thank you so much, Dan. Dana, you want to add to it?
In some regulated businesses, also transparency is an issue, a concern from the board. Some of these technologies really act like brains, so you have like a black box. And it's depending on the type of project, some of them do require that you're able to clearly explain the thought process that produce an outcome, right? So when we're very careful when we go with this type of projects to the board, because that, of course, is a very, very concern that they have very high, right? So depending on the type of project, going back to what you said, it's very important to kind of classify and make sure that the project aligns with the expectations of the board, the expectations for the business, and also who is a good candidate for that. Because there are projects that could be done with regular software engineering, with the traditional machine learning, which is still great for anomaly detection and other things that, actually they work much better than that LLM at the time, right? So that classification at the very beginning, understanding how you can use it, is very important.
Then thank you so much. Chris, I would like to ask you this question to start with you. What are some misconceptions about AI value that you usually encounter in your line of work?
You push a button and you don't have to worry about it, right? I mean, it's basically, right. And that's another one. So yeah, the misconception is that AI is ready to take over the world. I think is that big misconception, right? I mean, we've heard the report about the failures of the projects, right? And then I think the focus, especially for the business school, as we're talking to the business school, is really to go back. Don't get freaked out. We still need to apply good, I'd say common sense, right? But all the disciplines that we've learned throughout the years with these projects, it still applies, right? You still should not implement an AI solution without a backup, right? You should do parallel implementations. You should do all these things like piloting a solution, right? Don't pilot the solution before you go to try to scale it. Those disciplines that we have in place, cybersecurity, all those things that we need, governance, all those things that we apply, and we talked about all of today, still apply. And the things that you learn in higher education still apply, even though AI is now the next topic. So, and I'm coming from an AI company, and I'm saying that we still need to apply those thought processes.
So I was looking at ICAST and how you guys use surveillance, right? Anything you would like to share that you'd be like, wow, that's like an amazing use case of AI in ICAST, if it's not copyrighted?
So we do thermal. We do thermal, and you mentioned some of the use cases about looking at specific equipment. What's interesting about our approach, there are a number of devices that come with sensors now. So a lot of sensors, and sometimes we can bet a lot on those sensors being effective. And in most cases where we saw incidents happen, they had nothing to do with the sensors or the equipment. It was something in the periphery. Things that you're not thinking about, right? That you wouldn't necessarily think about, like fire suppression systems that may not have a sensor on it. So these are the kind of things that I think are interesting as we look at how we apply AI. And when I say AI, I say AI broadly, right? So I'm talking about using artificial human interaction, being able to see, smell, hear what's happening in a specific location. I think is very interesting.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. Stan, when Chris kept talking about, for instance, you got to put some guardrails, and they are already in place. Actually, do you think it's constrains the thinking? So I'll give you an example. Like when human thinks, and we happen to end up doing something wrong or not exactly what we intended for, we say it's very creative. When machine fails, we say they're hallucinating. So what's your thought on that?
Well, they are hallucinating, but they are hallucinating for the data we give them, right? So they are trained on. We heard today in that other session for the health session, 160 billion data points, and some of those data points are wrong, and they are systematically wrong, which is the more dangerous part, right? So if they're systematically wrong, the model thinks that is some kind of a cluster. And if that happens, that obviously answers. But in the example you described on the customer service side, so a lot of that's a big topic right now, agentic AI on the customer service side. We recently just introduced our partners. 16 million calls are handled with an agentic AI. Not only taking the call, but taking information and executing. So it's involving the agentic AI, which closes the request. 16 million, which is an incredible number, even for those who work for many, many years in AI. And they obviously also hallucinate, but you can build in guardrails, right? There are those agents, you can train them to not to answer if the answer is far away from what would be expected. That's the word statistics. So there are ways on how you can build in rules to avoid it. On the other side, with human agents, they also get others. Right? So it's not that just the AI agents. But on the human side, you have humans in the customer. Also make errors that might sometimes they are rude and sometimes things go wrong. The same thing happens to agentic AI.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Stan. I have one question, and I'll start with Hemi, and this is about, we all use AI in very different ways. Like if I'm writing a message in my Outlook and there is an AI component to it, I'm actually installing utility software, there is an AI component to it. So at Cummins, when they say we are an AI company or we are utilizing AI, what does that mean? And you don't have to use Cummins as an example, like just, when you come across other stakeholders or individuals that you work with, what does working with AI or we are an AI company, what does it mean for you?
So that's an interesting question, because even the definition of what an AI agent is varies widely across the company. There's 75,000 people, there's different groups doing it. You have just a basic system, prompt, engineered chatbot, all the way up to like multi-agent orchestrated systems. So nobody can agree exactly on it, but I think that fundamentally what it means to be an AI-enabled company is that you're trying to effectively use technology to learn from your data and partner with you intimately with decision making. It's a step further than kind of the descriptive analytics that we're used to, where you have a million different dashboards and somebody interprets it. And it's like having not a literal colleague, but like kind of someone that is advising you on different things in different problem spaces, and you use your expertise to distill whether it makes sense in that particular context to help drive your business value and your decision making in your company.
Well, that's great, thank you. Danielle, you want to add to it?
I completely agree with them. I think that's the right way of thinking about it, because even if you look at different companies, all of us are using AI in kind of different ways. And to be honest, everybody now, if you just ask any company in the world, they will say, no, we are an AI company. Same way that every data analyst that you ask We say, oh, I'm the scientist, right? So it's this kind of the word that now we're using to sell the skills or to sell the businesses. So it's important to kind of classify it that way.
Thank you so much. Chris?
Yeah, a plug for FIU. I remember we were doing one of the think tank, I think, sessions that we had to use AI in their project and presentation. And someone said from the team, the AI agent is our fifth team member. So it just relates to what we're talking about here, just using that AI agent as the sounding board for what you're going to do with them, then you look real close at what the outcome is.
Is there any particular job that you think is gonna go away? So I'll give you the context. So I saw Sam Altman day before yesterday in some show, and the interviewer kept asking him, he was really impressed upon like finding one job. And he said, well, I'm not sure about the jobs that are gonna go away, but I'm sure about one job that wouldn't go away. And he said nurses. Okay. So now customer service is one of the jobs that I believe everybody to a certain degree did mention it. We also keep hearing about machines as teammates or meta-humans. What's your take on that, Tammy, if you want to take a look at it?
So I'm a little hesitant about, because there's been people in the company talking about the digital coworker, right? And I think there's some deep ethical and potentially legal implications to that, right? Because if you have a digital coworker, imagine that you have a colleague, like a human colleague, that you do knowledge transfer sessions and you have human transfers. And now you train a chatbot, and now you have a digital coworker, and now you eliminate that person's position. I don't know what the legal ramifications are because I'm not a lawyer, but I can imagine that there's some issues with that. And also the whole, what does the company think of the people that work for it, right? If you reduce the talents and expertise of a human down to a knowledge base that can be prompt engineered in a bot, it seems to me to take away from the fundamental value of human expertise. And it's not just expertise, it's interaction, it's collaboration, it's understanding customer problems and the depth of human relationship that drives good business. So that's a little bit of a sticking point to me, and I've tried to be kind of the voice in the wilderness because there's certain people that are selling that, right? Because it's been said externally, because somebody's selling it, and people just kind of pick up on that and don't think of the ethical implications of it.
No, absolutely, and there have been examples, not just in terms of ethical concerns, where I forgot the name of the company, they laid off 7 employees, and they said our customer service is moving totally towards AI. And then 6 months later, they started hiring the same employees back again because it wouldn't deliver the value.
Right, and you get situations where people want to replace doctors and medical professionals with chatbots because they diagnose better more often, which is questionable anyway, how that was measured. But that's particularly disturbing because there's so much unspoken relationship between a human and a sick person when it comes to healthcare professional that maybe somewhere down the road a bot can do, but now they can't. So you're kind of distilling the complexity of a job down to like one measurable KPI based on like diagnosis of the doctor.
Absolutely, this is a great point. Stan, you have any thoughts on this?
At the end, it will be us as consumers who will decide. So in the customer service center example, if you are on the app with any travel organization, whether it's in the airline, in cruise lines are doing so already in some hotel, large hotel chains, like that, you can wait for a human agent on the chat or the call, or you can talk to a virtual agent right now. And it's on us to decide. And well, not in North America, it was not in Europe, in Asia, they are with digital options. And people are using them for the first assessment. Right? Obviously, afterwards, they go to but at the end, it will be us who will decide on, in which direction to go. So we will accept, to talk to the virtual agent and to trust what they say or not. And there's also generational issues. I have my nephew is 20 years old. He is all in. The digital world has much to have a physical one-to-one connection. For me, I'd rather like to sit here with you and not to sit here. Sorry, it's just, yeah, it's great, but yeah. Yeah, so
So I don't know. So okay, I would like to answer this. So Daniel, you want to add to it?
An extra point, which is human creativity, right? At the end, all these large language models actually are trained on our ideas, right? At least they have what happened when we stop thinking because the relevance of thinking for us. And I think that was touched in a previous panel on the cybersecurity, is basically what we don't use, we use. So how many of us are now able to do like addition, just, or maybe a complex mathematical equation, right? When I was school, we learned to do that. I completely forgot. We don't need to do it anymore, right? So what would happen to us when we just depend on these things, or think faster, learn faster, right? And we don't have to do things anymore. So that's something that is still honestly bothers me. Thinking about the future.
Maybe hopefully it's not a replacement, but rather an enhancement. Right? So we as human beings work closely with agents. Even though I see a point on the legal side, but here in March and April, Procter & Gamble, they made an interesting study from Harvard Business Review. They asked around 770 product team members to create a new product. And they divided them randomly into groups. One as teams with no Gemini or with no Copilot, they used Copilot from Microsoft Azure, and another team members with Copilot. And then a jury evaluated the submissions from the teams, not knowing which team had exactly. And it turns out that 9 of the 10 submitted ideas were with GenAI. The teams with GenAI were 10.2% faster than the other team members, and their submissions were, I don't remember the name they said, the word they were using, but they were kind of broad, so they included a marketing strategy, sales strategy, rollout strategy, while the others didn't. So it really enhanced the product. So it was still the product team members who kind of came in with their ideas and say, hey, look, maybe we can go this direction, but then the GenAI application in this case supported them of drafting it out and building the text and the math around it. So hopefully it will go this direction.
So this brings us back to one of the concerns which Tammy raised, that not everybody is sure about having a digital co-worker. So maybe we don't need a co-worker, like an equal co-worker. So are we looking at somebody or hiring AI as an intern? What do you think, Chris?
Wow. It kind of highlights the concern I have, right, from a transitional perspective, that I'm not as young as I look. And looking at the audience, you guys look great. But what do we do with our youngins, right? How do they transition into the workforce? How do we give back to them? How do we pass our generational knowledge to them if there's no internships, right? They're used to internships because we're using AI to do our reports, our AI to do our presentations, our AI, right?
As a moderator, I just heard.
Because we use those tasks to mentor, right? To bring those folks into the business world, let them understand our business processes. So it's a little bit of a concern how we maneuver that.
And would you be okay to utilize AI as an intern or as a co-worker, given the current stage where AI is at?
I think we've all used AI at some point as an intern.
That's true.
Because certainly we don't spend as much time doing PowerPoint presentations. Sometimes we do my things. Yesterday, I really wanted to do some research on the topic that we were sure about, and we was having problems. And it was problems with Devin and I said, okay, let's do lunch. And we came back from lunch, and the answer was there in the 19-page report. So I mean, something that we would give to an intern. So to that point, We've all kind of used it. It's just that how do we manage that going forward, right, with the goals in mind?
Absolutely. By the way, that question wasn't in the initial list of my questions, so that's why the panels were like, we never talked about that. But Tammy, I'll ask you another question. And when we were chatting, before the panel, you talked about like how the companies have invested in machine learning, and then you realizing that. What do you see the difference between when you talk to somebody who knows AI, who knows the technical background, versus somebody who doesn't know the workings of it? Like we always call it in tech the black box, right? Like usually the decision makers are the ones who have actually sometimes very limited experience understanding the technology or of the technology, right? So how do you deal with that, and if you have come across any challenges in dealing with other group of individuals?
Yeah, that is challenging because, first of all, I think as a company, a lot of people at Cummins are aware of how much we've done in AI versus what's not the overhyped AI of today, right? With predictive modeling and expert systems and all these other things. So one of the challenges we have, first of all, Cummins doesn't have a good centralized AI strategy. It's kind of sprinkled across the company. So we don't have the credibility as a group to say, for them to trust that we know what AI is and it's on our visit. And then I also think that they tend to not understand that because chatbots look like they're thinking, that they can't solve a complicated, deeply algorithmic machine learning problem that requires empirical testing and a lot of like tuning that's kind of more an art than a science. And they also don't understand that the output of an LLM is not stable, it's probabilistic, so it can change.
This is great. Dania, have you faced any challenges in, let's say, presenting the business cases to the board of directors? Like, we want to do this with AI, or we can, what you are suggesting, maybe it's a great idea, but how about we do that? How do you maneuver that?
Right, yes, I think we all have been there. I mean, working with it alone, right? Main challenge is that, as she mentioned, some of these executives are used to using AI in a daily basis. So they just run something, they just Copilot, use whatever, they get this great answer, the emails, and they think that that's the magic box. So they come to us and say, what do you mean you're going to just do that? It's as simple as I get an email, right? So I think that's one thing. So it's up to us to kind of educate them on the capabilities and the efficiencies of the technology, so after it is today, as well as I think that another very important way to help us is to present a pilot. So sometimes we even have ideas that we start working internally without even getting any approval from, I mean, making sure that it's just a good concept, right? And we're going to basically produce that. We're following, right? But when we go and present it to the executive, it's something that's working. So right now, just to give an example, we just have an agentic framework that just basically automatically classify emails that, are able to classify any type of emails that our executive can receive, right? And they can run emails. We don't have any question, but that happens, right? So, and then what we do is present that the solution working. We create a synthetic data. We have the solution just working all the way through. And when you hold it to something that actually works, and they can see and validate, then you change it. So you already have a full demo. So I think that's very important. That's why we can work this.
No, I loved your response, and how you used an actual application of synthetic data, because when you actually don't know it's synthetic, then you end up going into the public and arguing for a case. For instance, a lawyer did that, I believe, right, where he used ChatGPT for briefing, and all the cases, or several of the cases, they never existed, and then the argument was based on that. Stan, quickly, I would ask you, what do you think are the critical success factors for successfully implementing AI? Is there a list?
Well, on the technology side, I think we have. That's what we have. We have the people, we have the knowledge, and that's all. I think you need to get the people on board, and not the board, the actual users, the end users. You always will have this kind of critical thinking of the users. getting their trust. So it's very important for them to understand what they see, and they always need to be able to interpret it. There's a confidence level of all the predictions, of all the recommendations. So and because once you lose the trust in an AI application, it's very hard to get it back. So this starts really at the beginning, and I remember it's already a couple of years ago, but it still lives rent-free in my head. We had a customer, and they wanted to have a project manager for data analysis for the AI project. And we're looking for a technology, expert, and who can guide through all the Azures and AWS. And he said, and I will never forget, he said, I'm not looking for a technologist, I'm looking for a psychologist. Right? So to somewhere that can go in and explain and convince and get the trust from the people that this is right, this is correct, and it will not take away your job. So this is, I feel, is a very critical factor which many IT companies, IT departments do not consider as that critical. That's why they have a strong focus on the right platform, the right approach, on the accuracy, and so on and so on. But we kind of forget to take the people who are at the end using these applications, so they can with us on this journey from the very beginning, and also respect their opinion in the world. But some things we do, and things whether you know, but they do. Right? So take this into your consideration of whatever you are building, whatever you are developing, and I'm confident that they will move further.
Chris, you want to add anything to?
Yeah, I think this we're talking about change management is very important, right? So Daniel mentioned one way of kind of alleviating, so I also mentioned one way of alleviating that risk. I think that what we did very well, I think we still, Daniel. That next area is we did expos, internal expos, where we have technology booths and people come out and present. And within those technology booths, we were able to expose technologies, pilots that we're working on with the extra budget, right, to the end users as well as the executives. So it's like a one-shot deal. And usually when those projects came to a live or came to review at the board level, it was like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. It's fine. We told one time about one executive that would look at the chief financial officer. That was the first when they hit the multi-million dollar, tens, hundreds of millions of dollar benchmark. He would just kind of look at the project, read the details, and look through the project and look at it, and then he'd give his look at the financial officer would just, and we just signed and approve it. But that comes with actually being exposed to technology and laying that foundation before it actually gets started.
Thank you, Chris. I believe we can just take one question from the audience. If okay, we can take two questions. I was informed.
Thank you very much. My question is for Tammy. I know you work for a great company. They have about $30 billion in revenue. You do business in 192 countries. You've got manufacturing facilities in about a dozen. So let's say one year the head of international comes to your CEO and says, look, we're already in China and we're in India. I'd like to greatly expand in both of those major markets. And I need to do that for each one, $1 billion capital investment. And the CEO says, I can't do that. I can give you $1 billion and you've got to choose. And you, in your role, have helped them create an international advisor avatar on generative AI. And that avatar is going to walk them through all of the data collection and reasoning to help them choose China or India. How do you measure the ROI of that?
Wow, I get the hard questions. So, I think some of it depends on what is the strategy for investment, right? So, as part of that avatar, figuring it out, it's going to have a plan on what you're going to do in each company, in each country. So, as part of that, that would drive some of the ROI, right? So is it higher sales? Is it reduced warranty costs because of higher quality? It depends on what problem you're trying to address.
Right.
So I think if you're careful about strategically why you're investing that $1 billion in your plan, then it helps inform what ROI are you going to measure as the KPI of success at the end.
Thank you, Tammy. I have time for one more question, if you could keep it short.
I actually would like to hear what Sophia thinks because she's been inputting everything from the whole conversation, and I'd like to know what her reactions are.
I'm not sure if she talks. So yeah, we don't have Pedro who's in charge, so I'm not sure if we can have the answer for that one, but I'm sure he's around, and maybe after the panel,
We can bring him in.
we can bring him in. So if there is one more question, somebody from the back? Okay.
So my question is basically, we talked about ROI in terms of finances, revenue, and profits. So what does it look like in terms of non-financial success factors?
You all can go at one time if you like.
Well, I think some of it is employee satisfaction, right? So there's a lot of miserable stuff people have to do. Like, I know one particular example where every part has to be classified in a spend category for the whole company, and there's tens of thousands of parts, right? And this poor guy has to go through and do like multiple like stratifications of this and breakdowns to figure out where there's inconsistencies and do it manually. And anytime new parts come in, he's got to do this. And we get more and more parts, the more stuff we build, the more revenue we have, the bigger the company is. So he does a fantastic job at it, but he has a lot more skill than just doing that. So making his life easier, making sure he doesn't burn out and he can do what he really wants to do instead of being the one stuck with having to clean up data, because there's a lot of data cleanup stuff.
Piggyback on that from a danger perspective, consider a substation to a lighting store. And so if you're able to spot what's going on in that substation before you're deploying a resource to that site, you can make decisions as to when's the right time to deploy a resource to that site, and now not having human risk in that instance. So.
Also, customer satisfaction. Right? So in our case, you have to basically, FPL is the monopoly, right? You have to pay them to get the lights on. But we want our customers to be happy with us. So even measuring sentiment after we finish the calls and making sure that as we can increase customer satisfaction. That's what we call actually soft ROI. So there's an actual return on investment, but sometimes it cannot be directly measured, right?
Stan, you would like to add something?
Well, talent attraction. Many manufacturing companies have a hard time to, especially those who are located not in Maine or not in LA and not in fancy city, but rather somewhere outside. They have a hard time to get data centers at any of them. So they are going out. They're usually very open about AI applications they are doing. Just to attract people into their companies, so to get some traction on it, and not always rely on themselves.